Humans are primates. We are primates. So if anybody is like, how did humans evolve from primates? You just say, no, dude, we are primates. Now you might wonder how we got to be primates. That's because of Linnaeus. Linnaeus is the one that gave us that whole phylum, kingdom, genus, species. That's the guy who did that to us. And what's interesting about Linnaeus is if you look at when he was born and when he died 30 years before Charles Darwin was even born. A lot of people think that maybe it was some evolutionist trick to lump the humans together with the primates. But Linnaeus, when he made that whole schema thing that you have to learn in school, he believed that he was classifying God's natural order of the world. That is to say, he believed that people and other creatures were created by God, and he was simply describing the design of the creator. Later on, we figured out that the similarities that he mapped between human primates and other primates were quite useful for the ideas of evolution and how different creatures were related to each other. But at the time, he was classifying humans as primates because of our similarities with some of the apes and monkeys that Europeans were just then starting to become more familiar with. So, what lumps us together, or what lumps humans together with the primates? Most primates are diurnal. That means they're active during the day and they sleep at night. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Most of them prioritize sight over smell. So a reduction in the snout or the way in which they are able to smell, can't smell as well as a dog, but might be able to see better. We share, especially with some of the great apes, bonobos and chimpanzees, stereoscopic vision, the ability to have two eyes and to see in three dimensions. And we share with them grasping hands, an opposable thumb. Some people think it's an adaptation to living in the trees, being able to maybe pick out insects. Some people believe that the importance of vision was because of being able to look and discern snakes in an environment. Interesting idea. But the point is that we all have these characteristics. A lot of them are perhaps more developed in the human primate than in our closest relatives, but we share these things like an opposable thumb, being able to grasp things. We depend upon our parents. Oftentimes, the chimpanzee and bonobos have to be with their parents for 6 or 7 years. Same thing with humans. Extended dependency in childhood lasts for a long time. That you have to be dependent upon the older generation, probably about 35 years or so. Your textbook mentions alloparents, that primates tend to share parenting around. So it can be the mother, it can be the mother-father, but they also have a tendency to have other unrelated, even relatives, share in the parenting. What this means, or it gives us in all of the primate species, but especially developed in humans, the importance of how we learn to do things because we are dependent upon our elders and our peers. We learn how to do things in the company of others. We share large, complex brains. They are obviously not the same brains, but large brains in relationship to body size. They're not the largest brains in the world, like not as large a brain as an elephant, let us say, but in relationship to the body size, a complex brain that helps to guide a lot of our activity. So again, you'll notice that all of these traits are something that we share with other primates, and the closer you get to the human primate, chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, orangutans, you'll probably see more of these things. There's a nice little chart, there are a nice little picture that they give you that encompasses most of the things that we just talked about in just a nice way. A lack of anatomical specialization. That means we can be adapted to different climates and be able to do different things. A lot of the primate traits are an adaptation to living in trees, but able to live on the ground in different environments as well. The prehensile hands and feet. Again, the idea that you can grasp things. Prehensile means able to grasp like that and with a opposable thumb or a big toe. Flat nails rather than claws. Sensitive fingertips. And then sight for smell trade. So more emphasis on sight, less on smell. Evolution always involves trade-offs. To get more sight, you trade in less smell, not able to do that as well. And then the larger brain resulting in complex mating systems and stuff like that. What do we see when we look at over the primate family? We see a lot of flexibility, variation, and diversity. We see an enormous variation when it comes to body size, all the way from 1 ounce lemurs up to 350-pound gorillas. So we see body size differences within the primate family as well as within each species, different body sizes and shapes. See different ways in which primates get around. They can do brachial walking and hanging from trees, quadrupedal movement, and being bipedal. Humans are the only ones to habitually walk bipedal, but chimps, gorillas, bonobos can all do it for a little bit. They can walk around. Primates have a lot of dietary flexibility. So there are some primates that specialize in certain things. The gorillas, for example, are specialized vegetarians. They don't. Others specialize more in fruit, others more in insects. We used to think we could sort the primates out by whether they could eat mostly vegetation or ate mostly fruit or ate mostly insects. It turns out that primates sometimes shift from month to month throughout the year between these things. So they're even more flexible than we thought. Most of them are exclusively not meat eaters, but both chimps and bonobos do a little bit of hunting, usually of small monkeys, and includes some meat in their diet. A lot of social variability. So in some cases, there'll be male-dominated groups. Some cases, there'll be more solitary groups. There'll be some groups where females are more important or it doesn't seem to matter that much, which goes with a variety of mating patterns, different ways in which they get together. So some people look to various primates and they want to find the one basis for why people are like, or the one thing that characterizes them. There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of variability and diversity within the primate group. And that's why this chapter is so long and has so many cool examples, is in part to emphasize how different they are from each other. There's another cool diagram of the mating patterns and the group patterns in which we see other primates. So we see all kinds of different ways in which these groups form across a species and sometimes within the species. Given this variability, what do we get out of studying the non-human primates? What we're doing is we're looking for clues about our evolution and the common ancestors that we have. Again, we don't come from a particular primate, but we do share common ancestry. And we'll talk about how far you have to go back to get various common ancestry points. We get clues about contemporary behavior. We can take an activity or something how humans behave, and we can ask, does this have anything to do with primate behavior? Other non-human primates? Do other non-human primates do something like this as a part of our primate heritage? There are two dangers, there are two traps that people fall into when we look at non-human primates. The first danger is that we think that we are just like them, or anthropomorphism. So you would project human traits onto other creatures. I want to be careful of that. They're not just like us. But on the other hand, the other danger is denying that they have anything to do with us. So we can see a lot of similarities as well. So you just want to be careful there and maneuver between the two perspectives. Don't get too into the primates, but deny that they have anything to do with us either. What have we found? Again, I must emphasize our big finding from the primates is how much variation there is, diversity and flexibility. And this is both within or between species, but there's also variation within different groups of primates within the species and individual variation as well. Now, when we are looking for characteristics that we might share with a most recent common ancestry, when we're doing contemporary primatology and looking at, say, the gorillas or the orangutans or the bonobos or even the lemurs of today, we have to remember that they didn't just get stuck in time back there. We have all been evolving. The chimpanzees of today are not the same as the creatures that might have been around 5 million years ago. It's not that somehow humans evolved and they got stuck. We're all evolving and we're all changing into our environments. Evolution is a branching process. Species differentiate from each other, but everybody keeps on evolving in their own way. So we have to be very careful about that. And just along with the idea of not anthropomorphizing too much, some people have wanted to say that humans are just naked apes, apes without all that hair around. That's not true because we have been doing our own evolution for a long time. And we talked about the ways in which human beings use tools. In the last class, we talked about niche construction and starting to herd animals and build things and change our diets. And this has been going on for a long time. So we want to be careful thinking about that we're simply the same as a naked ape. We've all been evolving in our own way. We're going to concentrate on the dry-nosed primates, and especially when we get to a group of primates called the monkeys and then the apes. These are the most related to human beings. We divide the monkeys into two groups, which are the platyrrhines, or the Central and South American primates, also known as the New World monkeys, and the Catarrhines, which are African and Asian primates. And we're not going to be tested on species names, but this is a pretty large division among the monkeys and then the ape family. I just want to talk about what happens here. So some of these monkeys we call the platyrrhines, and they were once called New World monkeys. We're trying not to call them New World and Old World monkeys anymore because that refers to the ways that Europeans called the Americas. So that there's a group of monkeys that live here in the Americas. But then there's a group of monkeys and all the apes that live in Africa and Eurasia, in this area of the world. It seems like the monkeys that got to the Americas came from Africa, and maybe these places were closer together. There's a hypothesis that some of them floated over on a huge vegetation raft, which sounds crazy, but in some of these areas, these mass of earth and stuff can build at the end of a river, and then it breaks free. It's like a big floating island. That's perhaps the best hypothesis for why these monkeys got over here and then took their own evolutionary track. Now, these monkeys are fairly far distant from human beings. They're called platyrrhines or New World monkeys. They probably split off at about 30 to 40 million years ago. Now, the platyrrhine, that species name comes from the fact that they have flatter noses. It literally means the flat-nosed primates. These are all arboreal. They all live in the trees, and they are in general smaller than the Eurasian or the old world monkeys and apes. Some of them have prehensile tails. So in addition to being able to grasp with their hands and feet, their tail can curl and grasp things as well. Usually among the New World monkeys, the platyrrhines, there is not very much sexual dimorphism, difference between male and female, difficult to tell which is which from a distance. And they separated from the other monkeys in Africa and Eurasia at about 30 to 40 million years ago. Sometimes people will go to a place like Costa Rica or South America and they'll see some monkeys and they'll be like, what the heck? Those monkeys are goofy. There's no way we are related to these monkeys. It is true, these monkeys are silly. They all live in the trees. Some of them have these prehensile tails. But again, these are monkeys that split off about 30 to 40 million years ago. They're cool and they have some of these features like the stereoscopic vision and you can get into them, but they're not super closely related to human beings. There you go. A spider monkey, capuchin monkey, cotton-headed tamarin. Are all tree dwellers, generally smaller. Lots of swinging around, screeching, tiny. The Catarrhines, or the old world monkeys, are named, that name is because they have as literally sharper noses. The sharp nosed or the downward facing nostrils of the Catarrhines or old world monkeys. And there are no prehensile tails in the Catarrhines. Some of them even live on the ground or terrestrial. Generally, there is a larger body size, and this catarrhines, or the old world monkeys, is a category that also includes apes and humans. Oh, by the way, we should mention, what is the easiest way to tell a monkey from an ape? They don't have a tail. That's your quickest designation, no tail. So yeah, usually larger too, but no tail. So monkeys have tails, apes don't. There's usually more sexual dimorphism among the old world monkeys and the apes. So a larger difference between male and female. We'll talk about a little bit how that relates to, say, body size differences. So here are some pictures of some old world monkeys. These are generally more serious than the New World monkeys. They are closer to humans evolutionarily. They probably branch off at about 25 million years ago, where you get a separation between some of the first creatures we'd call apes and the monkeys. Some people would say, or you could think of it, that in some ways the catarrhines, the old world monkeys, are closer to humans than these are to the New World monkeys. There's a pretty big evolutionary distance there. So we have the baboons and the vervet. Man, there's various monkey species. Some of these don't even have much of a tail either. But some of them are ground dwellers and tree dwellers. So then we get to the hominoid category, which is a category that then includes apes and humans. These are generally largest in terms of their body size and their brains. Some of the larger baboons and others get close, but yeah, the apes and humans are usually larger. They usually have a vertical posture. They can be bipedal. They can stand up. use display. Interestingly, the apes and humans share a common dental pattern. We call the Y5 cusp pattern. So we all have the same basic dentistry in terms of our teeth. So again, we're getting to creatures that are much closer evolutionarily to humans. One of my favorite apes, but nobody likes them so much, are the gibbons. These are called the lesser apes, and I'm not sure why they're called the lesser apes. They may be a little smaller. They're perhaps more arboreal than other apes, but there they are, being gibbons. The great apes, or the larger apes, include some of your favorites, the orangutans, who probably diverged from other species at about 9 to 13 million years ago. The gorillas, people like gorillas, they probably diverge about, let's say, 12 million years ago. Then we have a divergence, the most recent common ancestor to humans, chimpanzees, and bonobos. There seems to have been a divergence around 6 million years ago. Now, when I say divergence in these millions of years ago ranges, it's because this doesn't happen overnight. This takes a long time. Animals go into different areas of the world and start to evolve differently, but then maybe they get back together and hybridize with each other. These are not instant transformations. Interestingly, there was another species split between the chimpanzees and bonobos after this split with the most recent common ancestor. So when I say that we are equidistant from, we are equally related to chimpanzees and bonobos, it's because we all share a common ancestor back around 6 million years ago. But there is a species split that differentiated these two groups within Africa a while back. This is something that we didn't know about for a long, long time because the chimpanzee, also known as the common chimpanzee, was very well studied and well known. People thought that the bonobos were simply a variety of the chimpanzee. They didn't realize they were a separate species for a long time. And in some of the early literature, you will see a cross or a lumping together of bonobo traits in chimpanzees. Now, we've been talking a little bit about the sexual dimorphism. So sexual dimorphism takes various forms in biology, the difference between the male and female of the species. I just want to go over some of the variation in body size of some of these apes species. So gibbons, they're about the same size. There's not much difference between a male and female gibbon in terms of average sex, size, weight. You see it a little bit more, or you see it a lot more in the gorillas, in which the males are about 50% larger on average than the females. Looking at this, I will also add with the gorillas, it depends upon which group they are. So there's mountain gorillas and lowland gorillas. And in some of the groups, the males are significantly larger than the females. With chimpanzees and bonobos, there is about a 8 to 15% difference of the males being larger than the females. Are there any other primate species that you know in which the males would be 8 to 15% larger than the females on average? You have to look around. Humans too, right? It's not a huge variation, but there is a slight, usually an average size difference among humans. Note here that there is a variation in terms of species. There's also variation by group, and there's also individual variation. So if you look out across our world or across our classroom, it's not that all the males are going to be larger than all the females, but on average, there's this difference. In human beings, I used to say that this was 10 to 15%. Now it seems like it's more like 8 to 12%, in part because our diets have changed It used to be that certain families at least, would feed their boys and girls different things because they thought that the boys had to be primed to work. They'd give them more protein and the girls got more carbs and sugars. Hopefully, we're changing that and we're realizing that everybody needs protein, some form of it in today's world. But the point of the matter is there's a lot of potential dimorphism here by body size that varies historically, cross species, but also cross group and by individuals. All right. Chimpanzees and bonobos. These are our closest living relatives. Their species names are Pan troglodytes and Pan paniscus. Interestingly, both of these species have been discovered to make and use tools. Jane Goodall was one of the first people to observe that a chimpanzee could use different things in nature, termite fishing sticks, in order to get the termites that they wanted to eat. So these kinds of simple tool making activities, I would say, have been observed among both chimpanzees and bonobos. Chimps, they're known for being aggressive and having a male dominance hierarchy. And so some people that like to emphasize the aggressive and dominance nature of human beings like to turn to the chimpanzees and be like, oh, we're like them. I would take these with a little bit of a grain of salt. Some of the first chimpanzee studies, even by Jane Goodall, were done in cases in which their habitat was being diminished and in which their conditions of life were being changed by human beings, including giving them food from the researchers, which tended to alter their society. So I'm not saying they're not aggressive. They can be aggressive and they have been observed to do some bad things like murder and like something that looks like intergroup and intragroup violence. So this is something that they do. The bonobos. The bonobos do show forms of aggression, but have never been observed to do any murder or this big intragroup or intergroup violence. They're known for using sex to mediate their social relationships. And to say if the chimps are going to beat each other up when they see something, some food supply, the bonobos are known to use sex as a way of diffusing social tension, especially around food. And I don't want to go into too much details, but it's all kinds of non-reproductive sex. Males to males, females to females, males to females, and all kinds of sexual forms. All the things that humans do, they seem to be able to have imagined as well. So they have a very wide variety of sexual stuff going on. Both of these traits, what they're known for, often happen when they are more in captivity. It's something they do more when they're bored. And it is interesting that when bonobos are bored, they probably have sex with each other. And when chimps are bored, they might tend to beat each other up more. That's interesting, but I don't know if that tells us much about what they are like in a more natural setting.